Hey everybody, John the Other here. Now, about a week ago, I did a video about Stephanie Guthrie and Gregory Allen Elliott, specifically the decision read by Judge Brent Knazan in the case of R versus Elliott. Now, Greg Allen Elliott is a graphic designer in his, early 50s. Stephanie Guthrie is a 20-whatever-year-old feminist activist who runs a small feminist political collective in the province of Ontario. And Guthrie and Elliott came to disagreement over Guthrie's little feminist group's organized slander and harassment and blacklist campaign against a game developer named Bendel and Spur, because he'd created a face punch game satirizing and making fun of Anita Sarkeesian. Now, Guthrie redirected her group's harassment campaign onto Greg Allen Elliott, the graphic designer with whom she'd had a disagreement, and we have about a year or 2 years of back and forth verbal disagreement between Greg Allen Elliott and Steph Guthrie. This is complicated by the fact that Guthrie portrayed her feelings towards him, portrayed her disposition towards Greg Allen Elliott as if she was, found him charming, found him an agreeable, amenable person who she would like to hang out with, who was charming as a dinner companion, and more or less led a very foolish man into thinking that he should continue to pursue some sort of a romantic interest with a woman roughly half his age. Now, being foolish isn't a criminal offense, although it is one that will get you into a lot of very, very dangerous deep water if you are tangling with feminists who essentially run social media, who are the dominating force in most social media. What Steph Guthrie and her friends were doing was a slander, harassment, blacklist, defamation campaign against Greg Allen Elliott, and his, quote, harassment of Steph Guthrie amounted to really not much more than continued engagement and rebuttal of their harassment, slander, and defamation of him. The weird part is that Guthrie was actually quite sharply aware that she was engaged in an aggressive, nasty, destructive campaign against him. The harassment is that she didn't think he should have the right to respond back. This is, of course, the standard, the double standard we see so much of from feminists. And the judge, Brent Knazan, goes into quite a lot of depth about who thought they were harassed and why and what were the circumstances. And he makes no comment in his 88-page decision about the efficacy of Steph Guthrie's harassment and defamation and slander campaign, except to note that her position that she can harass and slander somebody and they're not allowed to answer back is not a reasonable position, and it is for that reason that he dismisses the charges against Greg Allen Elliott. But a lot of people have looked at Steph Guthrie and have said, well, this is a monster, a criminal, a very dangerous, outlandish, crazy, nasty, psychopathic person. And I don't think that is correct at all. The only element to Steph Guthrie's personality that is outside the boundaries of normal is that she went up in a Canadian criminal court and basically told the prosecutor, the defender, and the judge that she and her little group of feminist compatriots would do and were doing a better job of dispensing justice than the courts. To me, that's extremely foolish and extremely bold. So that level of either boldness or utter bottomless lack of self-awareness is, to me, the outlandish part. The ethic that they can engage in a harassment and attack campaign in an organized way, and that Greg Allen Elliott cannot respond, is not entitled to a response, that is not outlandish. That's normal. That's something that we need to recognize is now a normal value for people of that generation and people of that social ethic, the progressive, feminist, do-gooder, social justice warrior. They really do see this double standard as if it is morally normal and acceptable. But that brings me back to my original question of my earlier video about this, which is, when will Stephanie Guthrie face justice? Now, that had the implication that when will she face justice in the courts? The question is, does justice come from the courts, or are people now seeking justice through their own improvised ad hoc means? And quite clearly, at least in the case of the social justice crowd, justice comes not from the courts. The courts are actually an encumbrance and a distraction and a relic. And for them, justice comes through social media, comes through, actions of the mob. It comes through back channel. It comes through slander and blacklisting and, rendering a town toxic to a person so that their career is forestalled or foreclosed on. So the question is, how long before the rest of the public, not the social justice crowd, but everybody else, also abandons the courts as a means of legal redress of any grievance? How long before justice leaves the courts altogether and becomes ad hoc, make it up as you go along? I don't think long at all. And that I find worrying. I find that dangerous. Because it's not just slander campaigns on Twitter where that will lead to. Thanks very much for listening, and of course, have a lovely day. And one last thing, anybody who wants to read the decision, I'll put a link to it in the low bar. Thanks.